Hello, aspirants. Welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I am here, Harpreet Singh, with a daily analysis of the Hindu from 7th of October 2024. Let's begin with today's analysis. Aspirants, this is the Telegram account where you can get this board work and the PDF on which I am writing right now. Along with it, a lot of material which is required for your preparation. You can subscribe to this. You can get a lot of material that will be essential or an important ingredient for your examination. Let's begin with what all topics that we have taken for today's consideration and analysis. The two schemes related to agriculture, PM RKVY and KY, separation of power, the Banjara community, Delhi's Lieutenant Governor and the Supreme Court's decision on them, along with that, the MCQs which are relevant for your preliminary examination. Let's begin. Now, it is very, very important to remember that when we talk about the government schemes, which we repeatedly pick up during our analysis, these become very important for your preliminary examination and along with that, your mains examination, because you can be asked, critically examine certain schemes or what are the provisions of the scheme or what are the components of the scheme, and then you can basically use your common sense also to give certain analysis based on the requirement of what the question is demanding. Now, see over here. Let us see the two umbrella schemes. PM RKVY, basically it stands for Pradhan Mantri Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. Second is Krishnoti Yojana. Now please remember, these are umbrella schemes. What are the main focus of these schemes? Umbrella schemes basically means a particular scheme which has a lot of schemes under them. So what is the aim of PM RKVY? It basically aims to promote sustainable agriculture. So whatever schemes we had previously, which were related to sustainable agriculture, would or have been placed under this particular umbrella scheme. Umbrella scheme means, again, one major scheme under which you have multiple schemes as subcomponents. Over here, Krishnoti Yojana basically addresses the food security and agricultural self-sufficiency. So all the schemes earlier, which were related to, let us say, food security or self-sufficiency of agriculture, have been placed under this umbrella scheme. Now, please understand, the Union Cabinet, in order to rationalize all the centrally sponsored schemes. What do you mean by centrally sponsored scheme? It basically means those schemes where the contribution is made by the central government as well as the state government. Right? The sector schemes are the one which are 100% financed and sponsored by the central government, but sponsored schemes are one where center and state both have a share when the contribution comes. Under the Ministry of Agriculture, to put under two umbrella schemes. So rationalization means there would be certain components of various schemes which are basically overlapping. So we need proper targeting and what is the demand for scheme, so we can just have those schemes together and better target and achieve better result. That is what the aim of these particular schemes, by clubbing them into two umbrella scheme, is what is being aimed at. Now please understand why this rationalization has been done. That means bringing those schemes and data under these two umbrella schemes. What is the reason behind it? What the government of India stand on that is. See, first, avoid duplication and ensure convergence. So that means there were duplication of various elements or components within those schemes were being duplicated. So what happens is that then again wastage of money happens. So avoid duplication and convergence. Focus on emergent challenges, the new challenges that are coming up. We can target on them more effectively. Let us say nutrition security, sustainability, climate resilience, value chain additions, and private participation. So these are also one of the aims which is being aimed for the reason for rationalization of those schemes. Then the state governments will be able to draw a comprehensive strategic plan suiting their requirements for the agriculture sector. Now, flexibility has been given to the state governments to draw their own plan, whatever their requirements are. Now, this is again a focus towards cooperative federalism in the agriculture sector also. Next, annual action plan of states can be approved in one go rather than approving individual schemes under the annual action plan. So rather than approving individual scheme, a whole plan can be approved because the plans are being drawn by the state government. So that means again you are basically empowering the states. So by this empowerment, the states have the flexibility of what type of plan they want, what component of a scheme is more suitable to them, and they require more funding under that particular program. So this basically helps to have a tailor-made action plan rather than something being imposed by the central government. So this is again few of the very important factors and features that we see with respect to this rationalization being done. As we move ahead, we see under the PMRKVY, the allocation is 57,074 crores. This includes the central and the state component both. Now, what all schemes have been placed under them? Please understand, you can be asked in your preliminary examination in order to confuse you. They can put some schemes of, let us say, the Krishnonatni Yojana under this particular umbrella scheme in order to confuse you. So you should be very, very clear what all schemes come under this umbrella scheme and what all schemes come under the other umbrella schemes. So under this, it comprises the following schemes. Please see this. Soil health management, rain-fed area development, agroforestry, Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, agriculture mechanization including crop residue management. Along with it, per drop, more crop, crop diversification program, accelerator fund for agri startups, and RKVY DPR component, detailed project report component, has also been added under this. Now, please understand, whatever 9 components you have done, you need to have a good idea that these are under which umbrella scheme, because I can assure you that in your preliminary examination, there will be 5 schemes mentioned, and they will be asking you which among the following come under this particular umbrella scheme. And that time, if you are not aware of it, you will be losing your marks. Let's move ahead. Please note, under PMRKY, the state governments are given the flexibility to reallocate funds from one component to another based on the specific requirement. Now, this is the great thing or the new thing that has been introduced. Supposingly, there are certain fund is being allocated. Now you feel that in a particular state, some component, let us say crop diversification program, this requires more amount of money rather than, let us say, DPR component or accelerated fund for startup. That component requires lesser amount. So what can the states do? They can allocate more fund to the one particular component which is more required in that particular state. So now that basically gives the flexibility, empowers the state with respect to the agriculture management in a holistic way, and also the aspect of cooperative federalism, right? So this is important. As we move ahead, please understand. Now comes Krishnonati Yojana. Now the allocation under this is 44,246 crores, again including the state and the central contribution. It comprises the following. You all know what are the aims of the 2 umbrella schemes. Let me take you again. Please see this. This Krishnonati Yojana aims at food security and agriculture self-sufficiency, while this was aiming at agriculture sustainability. This again has to be remembered well. Let's move ahead. See, what are the various components? Now, National Food Security Mission is under this. National Mission on Oilseeds and Oil Palms. Mission for Integrated Development of Horticulture. National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture. Submission on Agriculture Mechanization. National Mission for Agriculture Extension and Technology. Mission Organic Value Chain Development for the Northeastern region. These are the components under the Krishnonati Yojana. Now, please remember again, you need to revise it again and again in order to put them into your head. Only then you can remember them. And these are important for this year's preliminary examination as well as your mains examination, because in the mains examination, the 15-marker question tends to check your knowledge as well as your expression also. So they can probably ask you how Krishnonati Yojana is basically helping or might help in the improvement of agriculture. If you do not know the components, you will not be able to answer that particular question. So please be careful about that. As we move ahead, Next is, in today's newspaper, you saw that the Honorable Vice President said, judiciary, legislature have no executive authority, the Vice President said. Now, this is one of a similar statements that the Honorable Vice President has made earlier also. We will be going to brief what he basically means. See, this concept deals with the concept of separation of power. Now, see, what do you mean by separation of power? We know that this is a doctrine that deals with the division of power between among the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. So they all have been given separate set of functions. But again, what happens? This is an inbuilt system that is there in the constitution, but along with it, we have various overlaps also there. Because of this overlap, what happens? Sometimes, let us say, we see judiciary intervening in the functioning of, let us say, the legislature or the executive. We in the previous day's analysis read about Article 142 of the Indian Constitution, which deals with the concept of complete justice. Now, what happens at that time? The judiciary assumes the functions of, let us say, even the legislature and an executive in order to give justice to an individual, group, or a body. Now, that is why these concepts are also known as judicial overreach. That means judiciary is crossing its boundary or the thin boundary, which is basically denoting the separation of power. Now, obviously, there is a tussle, and because of this tussle, we have a concept of checks and balances also that we will see. The first thing we need to understand is this doctrine deals with the division of legislature, executive, and judicial functions of the government. Now, that means there is division of power. That means they all have their own powers in their own gamuts, and they should abide by that, right? Now, what generally happens, if we see the constitution also, constitution also very categorically talks about the concept of separation of power. When we see Article 50, we see that the states shall take up steps to separate the judiciary from the executive. Now, this is again one of the very important articles which focuses on the separation of power. Even you will see the constitutional demarcation prevents the concentration of excessive power by any branch of the government. Now, prevention of excessive power, that means we do not have a concept where one organ is more powerful than the other. Please remember that. If you see the United States, you see the court, the Supreme Court is the most powerful. If you see the British system of democracy, you see the parliament is the strongest. In India, we took up neither of them. We said that all organs have their own importance and there is a system of checks and balances. That means checks and balances means that one organ checks the powers of the other and that organ checks the power or the functioning of the latter. So what happens? We basically see that the various organs are checking and balancing each other also, so that no particular organ of the government basically becomes like a superpower. That is what is known as the concept of checks and balances. Now, please see this. We will be seeing certain judgments and then we will be seeing a diagram also which deals with the checks and balances. Please see. Supreme Court in its various judgments like Golaknath versus the state of Punjab 1967 basically also said that there is importance of the concept of separation of power, that all the three organs have been given their powers and they need to respect the thin boundary that separates the functioning of the three organs. As we move ahead in Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan case in 1975, the Honorable Supreme Court said that the separation of power is a part of the basic structure of the constitution. Now, the basic structure basically means it is not something that is stated in the constitution. No, these are basically a set of pronouncements and ideals that have come out of the judgments given by the Supreme Court, which basically started from the Keshav Nanda Bharti case in 1973, where the Honorable Supreme Court gave the concept of basic structure, which means those essential ingredients which cannot be changed or amended by the government. That means those are the core essential features. And in this by this judgment of Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan in 1975, separation of power was given the status of a one of the basic structure components of the constitution. That means this is something that you cannot change. So again, third, we see Kartar Singh versus the state of Punjab 1994, again emphasized on the concept of separation of power. Now, in a way, you will be realizing that Supreme Court itself has been repeatedly emphasizing that separation of power is an essential ingredient of the constitution. But we also see that there are cases where various organs are basically fighting with each other with respect to power sharing. This happens. Now, let us see the concept of checks and balances which we were talking about. See, let us assume these are three organs: judiciary, legislature, and the executive. You will be seeing that now the executive in India, please remember, in India, under Article 75, we see the Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People. Now, if the executive, let us say the government in simple words, the elected representatives who form the government in power, if they lose confidence in the Lok Sabha, then the government falls. So what happens? That means the legislature is also there to curb, let us say, keep a check on the executive, let us say, not only through the no confidence motion, but also through various committees, standing committees and all parliamentary debates. So we see there's a check on that. Along with it, executive can also make rules and laws which, let us say, bring on certain changes with respect to regulation of the legislature. That also balances. So they both are also balancing each other. On the other hand, if you see, the legislature can pass laws with respect to judiciary, let us say NJAC. That act was also passed, though it was basically declared ultra vires by the judiciary. Ultra vires means, that means going against the spirit of the constitution under Article 13. So, but legislature can also make laws to regulate the functioning of a judiciary. That means having a check on the judiciary. On the other hand, judiciary has a power to declare any particular law as going against the meaning or essence of the constitution under Article 13 and declare the law invalid, or that means ultra vires. So that means judiciary is also having a check on the legislature. On the other hand, we saw few days back also Article 142 of the constitution, which deals with the concept of complete justice. We see that judiciary can declare any act or any law, or for that matter any action by the executive, as, let us say, invalid under by the Article 142, which deals with the concept of complete justice, which we have already done few days back. So do you realize that every organ is keeping a check on the other? Now this is again forms the basis of the separation of power, which is again very important for the functioning of a democratic structure in India, in where separation of power is a basic structure of the constitution. So this is a brief idea how things are working. Now this is what the Honorable Vice President is trying to say. He's saying that judiciary should also avoid judicial overreach. Overreach means, that means like sometimes overuse of Article 142 for that matter. Or let us say commenting or giving certain judgments which basically intervenes in the legislative or the executive functioning. That also leads to, let us say, judicial overreach. That means you are crossing that thin line separation of power and trying to enter the field of the executive or the legislative functioning. So that is why the Honorable Vice President had mentioned that particular article, right? Let us move ahead. Now, this is a very important article because, see, Prime Minister shares his memorial experience of the Banjara culture and its people. Now, please understand, why are we dealing with these? Whenever these type of names come, they are very relevant for your, let us say, preliminary examination first. Second, whenever you're writing your mains examination, you're dealing with various vulnerable sections. In that case, these particular topics do become important, even as case studies and examples. Now, please understand, when we talk about Banjara community or culture, these are also known as Vanjara, Lambadas, or Lambanis. Or there are various other names also in anthropology we study. Multiple names are there. Now, please understand, you should be aware of one thing, that any community which is declared, let us say a tribe is declared as a scheduled tribe also, that is state-wise, not all India-wise. That means declaration of a scheduled tribe will be, let us say, whether it is a scheduled tribe in this state or not. So that is a state-wise declaration of a tribe as a scheduled tribe, not on an all India basis. So we see Banjara community is a unique community because it is a vulnerable section, yes. In some state, it is declared as a scheduled tribe. In some state, it is declared as a scheduled caste. In some state, it is declared as an OBC. Now, that is what is creating a problem also, because you would be realizing that, let us say, in the state of Maharashtra, there is a continuous demand that give the status of scheduled tribe to them. Now, these are also demands because we see a close relationship and mixing of the concept of caste and tribe. That is why in anthropology we study the concept of tribe-caste continuum. So there is a close connect, how the tribal people adopt the caste-like characteristics and how that mingling of caste and tribe characteristics create a structure which we basically study also. That means a tribe picking up certain caste characteristics. Now it will be having some tribal characteristics and sub elements of the caste also. So those things are happening. So that is why in case of Banjaras, it is something very unique to study. Now, whatever states I have mentioned, their relevance is over there, but you will be realizing the majorly they are present in the states of, let us say, Rajasthan also, and states of Maharashtra also, state of Gujarat also, and Madhya Pradesh are the major states. Along with them, there are other states also. Let's see. There are scheduled tribes in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Odisha. There are OBCs in Chhattisgarh, Gujarat, Haryana, MP, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra, and scheduled caste in Karnataka, Delhi, and Punjab. Now, this is again creating a problem because they are demanding that them be given the status of a scheduled tribe, and those protests are also going on, particularly in the states of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan. Now, coming to the aspect, studying a little bit about Banjaras. Please see. From where the Banjaras basically came or what is their origin is often very debated. One of the aspects which states is that, please see here, one aspect states that they basically were some of the tribes in the Afghan region which basically settled in Rajasthan, and from Rajasthan they moved to various parts as the Mughals also migrated to various parts. So some interpretation also say that there are, let us say, some confine or say that there are belonging to the Rajput community also. So there are various interpretations that have been coming up, and they have been stated by various anthropologists also. So some say that they, along with the Mughal army, when they went to the Deccan region, they also came along. So that is why they possibly spread to the southern Indian region of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana also we see. So one of them is they came from Afghanistan and settled in Rajasthan and later on spread to various other parts. Some view they have migrated from the Central Asian regions and then settled in Rajasthan and moved on to the other parts. Now there is one more interpretation, that a theory that have come up. They relate to the gypsies of Germany and Austria. That means they say they have their ancestry to the Austrian region or the Germany regions. They possibly migrated from there and settled in the borders of the present day India and then later migrated to the other parts. Now these are various interpretations which have been stated by various anthropologists and studies have been done on them. So we will be taking like multiple interpretations are there. Now when we study various dimensions with respect to their art and culture, we'll be seeing what they basically deal with. Activities, particularly pastoral. Pastoralism is a major activity. Traders, breeders, and transporters of good. Now, when we talk about language, what type of language do they speak? They have no script of their own. They either use, let us say, Devanagari as a script, or let us say the local language like Telugu and Kannada. In the northern region, you will be seeing that they will be speaking in Hindi also and Rajasthani local dialects also. And when they migrated to the southern regions, let us say Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, or even in Karnataka regions, they adopted the local languages and started speaking those languages. As we see the art forms, we'll be realizing that performance art like dance and music are very essential because they have those characteristics of, let us say, tribal characteristics also, which have been there from the let us say, from centuries. So that is why they still value them a lot. Along with that, folk and plastic art, textile embroidery, tattooing, and painting. Remember that whenever you see tribal people also, or let us say people who belong to, or indigenous people, you will be realizing that tattoos or making tattoos on the body is one of those very essential characteristics. Please remember that. When we see the tattoos, we assume that it is preferably for the reason of some show or let us say entertainment purpose. No. Remember that tattooing in the tribal or indigenous communities have to do with their identification and their kinship or the relationship that they have with their ancestry. That is why you will be realizing in certain tribals, they continuously, their generation over generation keeps on making tattoos, because those tattoos are not simply a form of art. It is also showing certain figure and figurines which basically show them that their ancestry or the relationship with which they have with their ancestors, and it is a representation of a mark. Let us say when we have Ashok's thumb, it is an emblem that is representing India. So that is why you have it at various official places. Similarly, for the tribals also, those tattoos are basically a representation of their tribal groups, or let us say whatever groups or the indigenous group that you're talking about. As we move ahead, we see festivals. Now they have festivals like Sitala. Now there are various other festivals, because when they have migrated to various regions, we are realizing they have adopted local cultures also. But these are certain prominent festivals. Now what is Sitala? Please remember, during the June and July month, it involves prayers for the protection of the cattle. Now that has got to do with their pastoral economy also. and importance with respect to religion also, because most of them are followers of Hinduism. So cattle becomes a very important component for their religious as well as economy. Dance and music, fire dance, ghumar dance, and chari dance. Ghumar again becomes important because we, as the theories have assumed that most of them came and basically settled in the state of Rajasthan. So Rajasthan, we have the ghumar dances as a very essential ingredient of the folk dance. Religion, mainly Hinduism. Marriage, endogamy. Endogamy means within a group. That means these Banjaras marry within the Banjara community only. Then widow remarriage is allowed. Divorce is also accepted. Now this is something, again, the practices that they have. Kinship, patrilineal. That means they are drawing their lineage from the father's side. That is known as patrilineal. But the important thing over here is that they give due importance to the women in the community also, because they consider them very essential for the healthy kinship relationships. That means the women are not treated as second-grade citizens in this community. No, they are treated as equals, but the element is that they derive their lineage from the father side. So that is known as patrilineal. Now, another article that has come up is the legitimacy, the legality of the Delhi Lieutenant Governor's power. Now, this has been in the newspaper for quite some time, today also, and yes, day before yesterday also. So we have taken up this article. Please remember why this has come up. See, repeatedly we realize that why these articles with respect to Lieutenant Governor's power generally come up. Because what is being said is that intervention of the Lieutenant Governor in the functioning of what ought to be the role of the government, as well as intervention in the processes of election, also basically stigmatize the effective functioning of the democracy. That is why over here the Supreme Court has very categorically stated that what the role of the Lieutenant Governor is, why is the Lieutenant Governor basically intervening in the process of the election. That is what is being questioned over here. Now please see. Supreme Court questioned the legality and validity of the powers exercised by the Delhi's Lieutenant Governor under Section 487 of the Delhi Municipal Corporation DMC Act of 1957. Now, what does the case involve? Please remember, the case revolves around Lieutenant Governor's directive to conduct election to fill the vacancies in the MCD Standing Committee. Now, what happens is that if certain things are going according to the rule of law and according to the provisions of the law that is mentioned, it will be fine. Once, what we observe over here is that Lieutenant Governor is basically violating what his rights and duties are. That is why the intervention by the Supreme Court has been made over here. Please understand. So what are the key issues that are raised by the Supreme Court? See, questioning the Lieutenant Governor's power. The Supreme Court emphasized that Section 487 allows the Lieutenant Governor to exercise executive power, but not to intervene with the legislative functions such as election. Do you realize again the concept of separation of power comes? That his duty under this article is that you have to have executive act, not intervene in the functioning of the election. That is not the gamut of the Lieutenant Governor. But this is being observed in this particular case where the violation of Article 487 is taking place as observed by the Honorable Supreme Court. As we move ahead, interference with democracy. Bench pointed out that the impact of such executive interference or a democratic process goes against the spirit of democracy. See, this is again important. An executive body is interfering in the election process. Now, this is against the spirit of the democratic structure because the Lieutenant Governor does not have that power. Because if we want to ensure fair election, then it has to be carried according to the law. Not unnecessary intervention should be made. This is what has been observed and remarked by the Honorable Supreme Court. Now, please, as we move ahead, there are certain powers which we need to understand. The role of the Lieutenant Governor is very different from that of a governor in a state. Please see. Constitutional basis. The governor is under Article 153 of the Constitution established establishes a governor in each state. Now, Article 153 of the Constitution provides a provision that the governor has, every state has a governor, right? Under the lieutenant governor is basically under the Article 239A, provides a lieutenant governor for Delhi, which has a legislative assembly. Now, this is the constitutional basis. Second is executive power, please understand. Exercises executive authority under Article 154 and appoints ministers under Article 164, which we know. Now, Lieutenant Governor of Delhi exercises executive power, but often requires central approval, acts more like a central representative. This is the difference here. Next, legislative role. It summons and prorogues the state legislature, can dissolve the assembly. Over here, we see that can summon and prorogue the Delhi assembly, but legislation requires again the president's approval under the Article 239 AA. Now, please understand these all provisions itself become important. They can be asked in your mains examination, also in your prelims examination. Veto power. Can assent to bill, withhold assent or return a bill. He has no veto power. Please remember, the lieutenant governor does not have a veto power. Judicial. Can grant pardons, reprieve or remission to the punishment. Does not have such power at all. When we talk about emergency power, the governor can declare a state emergency under Article 356, enabling the president rule. Obviously, the approvals are required. Now, over here, it is limited to the central government. He cannot independently basically do that. When we talk about authority over the state police, commander of the state police and the authority over law enforcement, over here, he has limited authority because the police in Delhi comes under the central government, to be more precise, the Home Ministry or the Union Home Ministry. Special power of the state, they do not have special powers. He has special powers with respect, certain special powers obviously present over here. Now, because he's an agent of the central government, so what basically happens that it basically empowers him to a certain extent with the powers of the central government also. That is what is being questioned and that is what is being said by the Honorable Supreme Court over here. So this was the aspect that we have done. So let us move on to the certain questions that I have for you. Please note these, see them, attempt them. Pause the video and attempt it. Pause the video and attempt it. Pause the video, pause the video and attempt it. Pause the video and attempt it. And these are your answers. This was the analysis of the current affairs from the Hindu from 7th of October 2024. We'll meet tomorrow again and continue with the analysis. Enjoy the world of newspapers, current affairs, which are very essential for your preparation for the civil services. Take care, and as we always say, Jai Hind.